Alright, so we have been on this patch for an extremely long time, and because of that, and also I don't think Blue Mammoth is going to be doing patches nearly as often anymore, it seems like they're kind of following a seasonal schedule, which works for me because that's kind of how I do my tier list anyways. So I figured, you know what, from now on, we're going to be doing both game modes, 1v1s and 2v2s, and we're going to be doing legends and weapons. A couple notes, the structure of this video is going to be the weapons, and then we're going to do legends right after. We're going to start with 2v2s. Also, on some of the tiers, I put notes if I felt like it was necessary. If anything, when I was doing the tier list, it kind of helped me group certain legends together. Now, if you don't like it, then just completely ignore it, but I do think in the end it kind of helped me make some harder decisions. So to start, we're going to be doing 2v2 weapons, and these are all ordered, and we are going to be going bottom up. In D tier, I put Greatsword. There's virtually no way to combo with this weapon, and it's kind of lackluster. The aerials are good, but that's really the best thing you're going to be getting. It takes up a lot of stage control, and it can be easy sometimes for your teammate to fall in the combos, which is very bad. In C, I put Katars. It's kind of a similar deal with Greatsword. I just find that if you have a teammate that is playing Spear with Katars, that is like the one use case that is actually kind of useful because Katar and Light can actually set up pretty well. If you're really focused on just 1v1ing, then yeah, Katars are going to shine. But at the same time, this is a team game mode, and if you're not working with your partner, and Katars are a pretty selfish weapon, it just doesn't make sense. In B tier, now these weapons I both think at their peaks can be very good, but we're not even close. Starting with Scythe, I think it is slightly worse than Orb. It can be a little selfish, just like Katars, but the setups are actually pretty nasty, especially if you're really good with it. Just right now, it doesn't make sense, especially once we get to the stuff at the top, and that's a very similar story for Orb. I find Orb to be very fluid and very hard to get punished for doing a lot of stuff. And at the same time, the setups are pretty good, but also it is quite a bit weaker than some of the stuff in the higher tiers. Moving up in A tier, this is where I put both of the heavy weapons, and pretty simple explanation. Hammer, right now, I think is just maybe a little bit worse of a weapon than Axe. They serve the same purpose. Big damage from single hits. They can find kills off of certain moves. For example, both of them have side air, and that is super strong, but at the same time, it just doesn't totally make sense to play it. They're a great pairing with some of the stuff higher, but to just kind of rock double axe or double hammer, it might not totally shine like you want it to. Now, I put Bow at the top of A. I find Bow to be super good. I really enjoy Bow in 2v2s. However, I think because it doesn't have always the easiest setups, it does require you to be pretty good. I had to put it below because it is still more of like a string kind of weapon. But the setups that you can get if your teammate is good enough to work with you are crazy. Blaster's Bow, for example, have a great kill combo. Depending on if you're playing like, say, Zariel, you have some really easy SIGs available to you to help with combos as well. S tier is where it really starts to make a lot of sense. You're going to be seeing this stuff in tournaments and possibly seeing people win with these a lot more often, I would say, than some of the others. Sword, solid. Enlight, great combo starter. Recovery is super hard to punish, and fighting double sword can be a bit of a nightmare. Lance is just crazy. The damage buildup is great. You can find extended strings. The drifting makes it pretty hard to punish. Stuff like Nair, that's a great move to use in 2v2s. And even side air and there, again, it goes back to the drifting. That's extremely annoying to deal with. Boots, I kept out of my top 4, but I will say I don't think we've seen the peak of Boots. Boots are just incredible. They have the combos, they have the strings, they even have like, I don't like to call it, yeah, it's drift on certain moves, I guess that's what it is, but with the variance, it kind of keeps you guessing, and the travel distance you can get on certain stuff, just like Lance, is incredible. It's just the only representation we have right now in 2v2s. I have seen Radish mainly, but I know in like Brazil, there is Wesley, who has also been a big Boots player. Now in top 4, we're going to go from 4th to 1st, okay? Spear, I think, has great control. It has great setups, and that's just very nice. Cannon, you're just able to move around super freely. I think better than like Boots or Lance. Your teammate, say, gets caught by someone against Cannon. It is just a nightmare to have to like try and run and help them, because there's no way you can really punish that Cannon player unless you're throwing your weapon to try and save your teammate. Now, this is assuming they get caught by a dodge and taken off stage, but still, the Cannon player can literally just fly around, and I'm not even just talking about Sair. they can just be hitting their end lights, and the second part just offers so much movement. D light moves them around, side light, pretty much everything, unless you're doing like Nair, I guess, or you're doing end light and you miss it. Right ahead, we have gauntlets. This should absolutely not be a surprise. There's not much to say. Double gauntlets have been huge right now. Also, when you pair them with the first weapon, which is blasters, there's nothing better right now than these two together. The setups are endless, especially with how much people have been optimizing the gameplay. They've even nerfed gauntlets for this patch, and they're still crazy good, and they're still a great pairing with blasters. But blasters, you can take blasters plus any of the weapons on this list, and they're gonna do super well. I do want to say this as well. I think blasters have been at the top of 2v2s and probably the best 2v2 weapon for a super long time. But lately, people have been optimizing the play a lot more. We've been seeing like side light usage in combos, not just like end light and dare and, you know, say D light. Side light being used is just opening so much more for people. And if you're watching high level 2v2s, the people that are winning are making a lot of use out of side light for their setups. So we just did the 2v2 weapons. Now we're gonna go into the legends, okay? We're gonna start from the bottom and go to the top again. F tier, these are just probably the worst you could absolutely play. Magyar, you know, Magyar 6 have gotten buffed, but I still think Greatsword is just such a nightmare to have to play in 2s. It doesn't make any sense at all. Just don't do it. In D tier, I put you must be level 100 because why else would you even touch these guys for 2v2s? You notice Jaehyun and Arcadia are both higher than Magyar and Mako. That is because I think just having Spear and Sword just puts them a little higher mainly. In C tier, I have Katars mainly as the note. And as you see, yeah, that's kind of what it is. Ragnir, Linfei, Sentinel, Caspian, and Asuri. I also have Scarlet and Volkov there. I just find them to be kind of whatever. Like, they're just really sig spam characters in this tier, but for the rest of them, Katars are just selfish, like I talked about. So it is kind of like, why would you really play any of these unless you're just an absolute pro with Katars, you don't want to give it up, and or your teammate is playing Spear. In B, now we might start to get a little controversial, okay? I think all of these characters in 2v2s have absolutely insane sigs, or let's not say all of them, but some of them really do. But in other areas, they definitely fall off. Mirage might be a great example. Scythe, I just think is kind of like I said, for 2v2s. The defense being lower probably isn't as big of a deal as some might make it seem. We'll go ahead and take a look at like Core and Mordex as well. They have gauntlets. What? You put gauntlets at number 2. Yeah, but I just find in 2v2s, the meta is so defined and the alternatives are so much better. Why would you ever bother playing them? You could, but you're just going to be working a lot harder. A tier is kind of a similar story. They are kind of strong and you could make them work. Still going to be working a little harder, and it just seems the meta is so defined, it doesn't make that much sense to play them. There are characters where Jala, I think, is one that could be argued otherwise. Isaiah, I would like to see more of in 2v2s, and I think, honestly, he could possibly be higher. Sir Roland is another that maybe, you know, some of you would want to put higher, but it is hard when there is such a limited sample size. S tier is starting to get really, really strong. You could honestly play these guys at a high level, probably win with them as well. I'm just not going to talk about this tier that much because when we talk about SS, I think it makes a lot more sense. SS should kind of explain itself. You look at these characters, you have extremely strong stats, you have insane sigs, and they more than likely have gauntlets unless they're Kaya. In top 3, these should really be no surprise. Number 3 spot, Ulgrim. Doesn't have gauntlets, but still I think he is just such a beast to fight. And once you fight an Ulgrim in 2v2s, especially against a good one, you can see the carry potential in this character, and they can basically 1v2 the entire game, and your teammate could just be like a support player. In number 1 and 2, I should say, honestly, Cross probably deserves that number 1 spot. I think Onyx, you can swap out a little more. Either or, these guys are freaks. Their signatures are so good. They have cannon gauntlets. They have crazy good stats. You combine them, and they are literally just making it easier to win for you. That is just, you can't argue with that. And the people at the top, this is what they're playing. This is what everyone who's looking to win a 2v2 tournament is playing. Or say they're playing like one of the characters in SS plus Cross. It is just disgusting how good these characters are. Before we move on though, here are the 2v2 weapons and 2v2 legends side by side, so maybe you can kind of get a better idea of how I made my decisions. Now the 1v1 weapons are also ordered. and we're going to be starting with the C tier, which I like to call the why bother tier, because it does not make sense to really play these weapons. They added the dash change recently. You know, that ruined some stuff on Greatsword. Greatsword still has good aerials. There's gonna be ways you can play around that, but when you have a confirm, say the opponent has no dodge, right, and you're trying to hit a big long string, they literally can just spam their dodge key and they literally could snap to the ground and dash out of the attack, so you can't get the finisher, which literally nukes Greatsword's killing ability. And that makes the weapon, I think, just I don't want to say unplayable, but it makes it very, very bad. That's why there's no like F tier here. C tier is just like, it made it definitely harder to play because now you're literally missing out on opportunities to kill. Hammer and cannon, not going to give that much of an explanation. I just find them to be kind of lacking in 1v1s, especially with what's at the top. B, I like to call the counter pick region. As a Gauntlet player, it kind of sucks the state that Gauntlets are in because they just get nuked in certain matchups, my opinion. And same with Axe. I think Axe can really struggle in certain matchups. But then we have people like, I would say, Blaze, Witty, Stingray. He is so good at Axe and makes Axe look incredibly nice. If you're comfortable with these picks, then you can make them work. But I would not really be picking these in every scenario. In A tier, we have Orb, Scythe, and Sword. I think all of these are solid. It's hard to really say because, again, if you're putting in the time with this stuff, it makes sense to pick it. And if you enjoy it, you can definitely find success. Moving up in S tier though, this is where I think it really starts to be clear at just how good these weapons are. Blasters, I think, are super strong when it comes to their killing ability. It's really nice to have them as a backup in 1v1s. Boots as well are kind of a similar story. The combos are good. It doesn't necessarily kill super early, but boots do have great gimping potential. And I think their ceiling, they're not even close to reaching the ceiling of this weapon. Then at the top of S tier, I did put Lance. Maybe Lance could go higher, but the drift is so annoying to work around. Lance is a weapon where you can rely purely on like Sair and Dare pretty much, and it's a nightmare. And people are finding out on the ground, D-Light usage is incredible for the weapon. Then in the top three, I have Bow, Spear, and Katars. Maybe I'm just seeing Impala be a beast on Kaya, and my opinion has gotten swayed pretty hard. But I think Bow, even with the nerfs, the string game is pretty good. It's super streamlined, so you're going to know what to do in most cases. But still, there's certain situations where if someone has no dodge, you catch them out of the air. You hit Sair, Enlight, Nair, or Recovery, depending on how you set it up, right? There's certain like more niche strings that you can find. And even then, I think Bow like Nair is one of the most horrendous moves to absolutely deal with. It can be hard to land against Bow. That's a big like sore spot for me against playing it. It's just super hard to deal with, and yeah, against like Gauntlets, it's super hard to land. In the number 2 spot, I put Spear. On certain maps, you can actually get triple D-Light, which, okay, yeah, sure. You're not going to be finding it always, but a high-level player is going to take advantage of it when they can, and it's going to be able to kill even earlier. Forget the triple though. Double D-Light is still very easy to do. I think Spear overall, the reads that you can get are insane. You do Sidelight Nair, that covers so much. Nair alone is disgusting, but on the ground, Enlight pokes are extremely hard to fight, and then Sidelight is still pretty good. D-Light as well is nice because, you know, D-Light, if you have the dodge, you get the double D-Light. Recovery is actually kind of hard to deal with in some cases. It's harder than you think to punish that move. And then off stage, Dare is extremely annoying to deal with. I mean, there's pretty much no weapon that can contest like a good Spear Dare. Maybe like Blasters, but if the person's really good, side air, Dare, it's gonna be hard to get back. The one weapon that I would put ahead is Katars. I think the string potential is crazy. The difference between, let's focus on Spear and Katars. Spear struggles a little more when it comes to killing than Katars. That might sound pretty whack because Spear does have D-Light Sair, but unless your opponent is really jumping around and you're feeling comfortable to commit to that, I think Katars have the ability to just kind of throw out Enlight, D-Light, and even stuff like Side Air and Nair on the ground. If you're feeling like you're trying to catch them, you know, see if you can find a dodge or something, just ripping Enlight and D-Light and seeing how they react, and maybe they fall right back into it, or maybe you catch them whichever way they're dodging, or they just decide not to dodge with the recovery. It is a really strong setup. That's mainly the reason why I put them at number 1. I do want to add one thing though. The absolute best weapon in the game is Lord Vrax 9 Dex Lance. It does not get better than that. And I say him specifically because there's no Lance character that can hit 9 decks aside from him. But having D-Light into N-Light, as well as all the other stuff that's good about Lance, is insane for the weapon. So now we are on to the 1v1 Legends. Now, these are not ordered until we get to the top 10. So just keep that in mind if something doesn't look right. I don't want to see you guys in the comments complaining about it, okay? Starting with the C tier. These are just flat out the bottom 3. I think they all lack pretty bad, but we have Core, Mako, and Magyar. 2 of them have Greatsword. Sigs aren't even that bad, and that's why it's C tier. That's why it's not D or F. You can play them. I think they just clearly are suffering right now. Moving up to B, I put suffering in stats, mainly. So there are some characters, I think a good one would be like Jaeun and Nash. Nash in particular, stats can be pretty good. Dex doesn't really matter for his weapons that much. Sure, Spear has Saren to Enlight. I think even like there's high Dex, 9 Dex Hammer, there's something for it. When you look at overall, the other characters in this, you look at Volkov, Arcadia, Cassidy. They have good sigs. Speed is just terrible, and it doesn't really benefit them in any way. Even Yumiko, I think, is kind of bland. Higher Dex Bow and Hammer, I guess, can be pretty good, but she just doesn't have something else to really back her up for it. In A tier, they start to lack a bit more, okay? Bad matchups, I think, are becoming a bit more evident. Notable ones would be Ragnar. Well, Ragnar has Katars, why not play him? I think you have to look for a Sig a little more than you want to. Otherwise, you're going to be relying mainly on like Axe Enlight to kill, maybe a Sare, and Enlight into Katar recovery, something like that. Yeah, these guys, the Sigs stats, they both can be good. They can be balanced, but I think when you get to the stuff above them, it's just like, oh yeah, they are kind of middle of the pack. The best description I could come up with the S tier is that in the right hands, they will be insane. You don't have to work super hard with these guys necessarily, but you're going to have to dedicate some time to them. And that's true with any legend, but I feel like with these guys in this tier, if you're going to like really grind them out, you're going to be able to see success. But I still think that there is a bit of a difference from the S tier into the SS. SS tier are basically the legends that could be in the top 10, but I ended up not including them. These characters have great stats, really strong sigs. They have a weapon that is either insane, or they have a weapon pairing that I think can complement each other pretty good. 2 other things I want to mention. Basically, all of these characters in here have ways you can integrate the sigs super nicely. And if you have no dodge, they're borderline inescapable, or they just straight up are. Koji has D-Light N-Sig on Bow. Nyx, D-Light N-Sig on Blasters is extremely good. Jiro, D-Light Side Sig on Sword. The one character I do want to talk about in the SS tier is Queen Nai. Queen Nai has Katars and Spear, and insane signatures. Katars and Spear I put at number 1 and number 2. What always has held her back is speed. But now, because of the dash change that they did, she can dash around the stage and move a lot faster than what she used to, because you can snap to the ground, and dash jumping can make any character move very, very fast. She still suffers an aerial speed, so maybe it's a bit of a controversial pick to put her here. We've only recently seen Java actually do very well with this character in the Moose Wars. I don't know about other regions, but I think the ability to just spam signatures with this character, you can do some pretty cool things with the signatures as well. Just the individual strengths of the weapons that she has are enough to make up for that aerial speed that she lacks. So for my top 10, I'm going to try and keep it pretty brief with these guys because I think it does make sense why they're here. And again, SS, look at the description. I think it's fair enough to say that some of these could be swapped out. It just depends on who you are. In number 10, I put Red Raptor. I think for an on-release character, the side sig on bike is crazy good, but the other signatures, D sig on boots and N sig on boots are also pretty good. I don't know. He's not standing out too much to me, but in the 9th spot, Tezuka, on release, his character was a monster. Even still, he has gauntlets, which are and the stats I don't think are crazy good, but the signatures are still out of this world. And you can find someone in like orange and just even up the game if you hit like a gauntlet side sig, for example. So that's really nice. And of course, boots, we don't know the peak of them, so I think it's only fair that I give Tezuka the benefit of the doubt. At number 8, we have Caspian. Caspian is weird because I've complained about how he has no range. That just doesn't matter. Guitars, best weapon in the game. Signatures on them hit so hard, and that's true with gauntlets as well. Great signatures to just equalize a game with, and also his stats, high strength, mediocre defense, it's 1v1s, who cares? High speed as well, that makes him a menace to play against, but we don't really see him play too much. Same can be said about Artemis. at number 7. There is borderline no Artemis players. We've seen Wesley pull out Artemis before, but Artemis has an incredible signature kit. You can do sidelight into Ensig on Scythe. I'm pretty sure you can do sidelight into Ensig on Lance as well. But forget that, dude. Forget the fact that all of her signatures hit so hard. Let's talk about Lance Sidestick. Dude, they buffed that move and they have never looked back at it. And apparently no one else has really looked at that character either. I remember there's a time where I played it and people can know you're going to throw a side sig. It just doesn't matter. Eventually you're going to hit it and they can't really punish it either because it's such a lunge forward and then it's back. And the threat of it is so scary at later health. People are probably going to be playing a little more reserved. So they're not always going to be in a great position to punish you. Up another spot, I think Diana is probably one of the picks that some of you maybe disagree with. Bow is super strong and blasters are, I just think, a solid weapon to have. Her stats, normally you're going to probably take speed stance and go 5, 5, 5, 7. If you're looking top down, that is. 7 speed on both the weapons is going to feel very good. The rest of the stats, whatever. Her bow kit, you can do D-Light Ensig, which I find to be very nice. There's a lot of ways you can integrate the signatures, and if you're spending time with this character, it's going to really pay off. Someone to watch out for in Summer Championship and just in community tournaments and stuff right now is Balloon Boy. Balloon Boy has been an absolute demon on the Diana, so if you want to see high-level Diana gameplay, watch him. Number 5, Orion. This character just has absolutely bonkers signatures. That's the main thing. Stats, okay. Lance Spear, yeah. Number 4, they nerfed Thea, but it was an absolutely bogus nerf. This character still is just Sig spam City. We saw Boomy literally spam Sigs up until a 5th place at Dallas. That was insane that he was able to get away with that. So maybe when people figure this character out, it'll be a little easier to deal with. The stats I don't think are insane. 9 speed is kind of whatever, but still. I think the signatures on Thea are just better than Red Raptor, and Red Raptor's the latest character. Number 3, I put Lucian. Some people might say that it's just a skill gap. Luna might just be that good at the character and one of the best players, if not overall the best player in the game right now. That aside, him having the stats that he has with the weapons that he has are so good. I think low strength blasters, it doesn't really matter. The low strength isn't going to affect the damage build that you can get on both weapons. And then his signatures that he has available to him, I think he has the best signature kit for Katars, bar none. D-Sig, you're going to be able to kill people so early. You can integrate it off of a sidelight pretty well. You can also do side sig, just rip it in neutral, or you could integrate it off of a sidelight. You can do N-Light into N-Sig, that's a big one, or like a D-Light into N-Sig, and that's also pretty big. The signatures are definitely a little overtuned on Katars. They nerfed D-Sig. What did they nerfed like the Force or something? Because it's still hitting like a Mack truck. But everything for this character just meshes well. And that's the exact same truth about Kaya. Kaya, high defense, high speed. The signatures are very nice. On Bow, I find that there is not a character better than Kaya when it comes to mixing up your options. Being able to do sidelight into D-Sig if they're doing certain dodges, or side sig, or N-Sig if they're jumping. Impala, of course, has been doing insane with Kaya, and, you know, that's going to bias me a little bit. But there are a lot of other people who are picking up this character and finding success. Lors is another one who has been finding crazy success, and I would also say like Acno, mainly 2v2s, but I'm sure he's dabbled with it in 1v1s at least a little bit. Then in the number 1 spot, maybe I'm hyping him up a little too much, but I think 9 Dex on Lord Brax is insane. Forget blasters. You don't even need to play blasters. Just play the 9 Dex Lance. D-Light, N-Light, meaning you don't just have to use sidelight to combo on the ground, is crazy. It's doing 30 plus damage on every character. The SIGs are insane. The rest of the stats are mediocre. Who cares? You have the 9 Dex to make up for all of that. You have Lance to just be zooming around with. If a serious Lance player picked this character up right now, it would be over for all of us, dude. They would be winning every tournament. Pack it up. I'm waiting till next patch, okay? However, the only person we've seen is Knees play this character. And he literally played it, I don't know how many sets, but he played it, beat Luna at Dallas, the most recent LAN, by the way, and then never saw it again. I think he played it in losers, and then he ended up playing Lucian like the rest of the tournament. But if you saw that set, you know what I'm talking about, because it literally looked like it didn't matter how good Luna played. Knees was just able to like balance it out in skill, because he had so much available to him that's just straight up unfair. But those are both of the 1v1 tier list, and here they are side by side, the weapons and the legends. Before we end the video, remember, this is just my opinion. It got super hard to play some of these. I don't even know how much it matters. I know I have like from SS down to like C tier, and of course the legends are closer. I just think it's nicer to kind of see more of a gap because it's all relative anyways. So yeah, I could do A plus, A minus, or I could do it like this and have A, B, C, right? Let me know in the comments what you guys think of all these tier lists, okay? I hope this video didn't turn out too long. Thanks for watching, guys. 1v2 should be the next video, so stay tuned. Peace out.